they don't have to necessarily know about it. All you have to do is design products using the principles. You'll get the same output, right? If your product is a green chemistry inspired product that has positive environmental and social benefits built into the product, the more units you sell, the better it is. But again, it has to be a product designed for a customer to meet a need and a problem they have. Yeah.
So, like, in other words, maybe like the customer doesn't need to know how the product is made, but as long as this company knows how to make this product sustainably and in a cleaner way, and like they can actually make profits out of it,
Sure. Yeah.
then it should be beneficial for both the company and the customer.
Yes,
What I get.
exactly. The metaphor I use again is uh, when you're taking who has a does anyone have a car? Okay. All right. Sometimes you're like, you want to go pick up your friend, go to the movies. Yeah, fun thing to do on a Saturday. So you say, I'm gonna come by, I'm gonna pick you up in my brand new car, and we're gonna go to the movies. All right. So you come, you pick them up, you're in front of their house, and they come out and they say, all right, let's go. I'm like, great, but before we go, I want to show you something. And you open the hood and you start saying, here's the engine, here's the cylinder's firing like this, and then it goes over here, and then it goes through the carburetor and around, and the filter, and this. And all of a sudden it's 9 p.m. and you miss the movie, and your friend's like, I didn't care about any of this, right?
Yeah.
Just when you're talking to people, when you're selling to customers, when you're talking to investors, get in the car, turn the key,
Just
take
go.
me to the movies. Okay. I don't care how the engine works. Hopefully we do it right. And that's the whole reason we're in this mess, is because no one was thinking about how things were done and the impact. But again, people don't need to know that to enjoy the movie or to get to the movie.
Yeah. Okay. I see. Another question from Pa Hubert Widyastono. Another question from the chat is about the scaling and growth strategies.
Mhm.
He would like to touch on that,
Okay.
particularly related to entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
How do you see the essence of green transformation and green entrepreneurial orientation roles in this particular green chemistry industry development?
So every everything in the world will be redesigned.
Yeah.
Everything,
Okay.
right? So that's the green transformation. The energy system, the transportation system, the food system, the water system, everything is changing. The urban environment. So that is just who's going to figure out what to do. I mean, so it's just like biggest opportunity in human history is to redesign all this stuff. So um, I hope that answers the question. Maybe.
Yeah,
Or
I think that's reasonable
if
enough.
it doesn't, you can post in the Zoom again.
Okay, it's okay. I think that's
That's
all
it.
the questions from Zoom. So maybe
Okay.
we can proceed to the next session.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Great.
so
Before you, okay.
please give a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank the Academy. So before I switch to this next unit, I just want to make a point because some of you won't be here tomorrow. And I had a few people come up to me that said, it's been interesting learning, but I'm not going to learn business. I'm not interested in that. That's totally fine. You don't have to learn business, and it might not make sense for you to learn business, right? You don't have to be the CEO of a company. And so there's a very famous venture capital fund in Silicon Valley that's one of the biggest in the world, and it's called Andreessen Horowitz. Okay, and Andreessen Horowitz have put like hundreds of, I mean, I don't even, at least $100 billion in venture. I mean, it's crazy. And Mark Andreessen is the guy who invented the web browser. Okay, which we use every day on our phone. Yeah. So he like innovated and created this thing that didn't exist. That's like a chemist. They create things that don't exist. They innovate, right? But they this firm would not have been successful without an operator, right? And the operator is Horowitz, who helped scale a bunch of businesses. And you can look at this trend. Every business needs like an innovator and and like an operator, an entrepreneur, right? And you look at Apple, right? Steve Jobs is like the guy who gets up on stage and the iPhone and the turtlenecks and all this stuff. He knew a little bit about computers, but not very much, right? He was an operator. He had a good execution plan, good marketing, and talked to investors. But again, Steve Wozniak was the guy who like invented all the technology that he sold. So although you probably won't make your own income statement or your balance sheets, like if you just know what they are, that's enough to find someone who is an entrepreneur, who is an operator, and then they can do all of that work and you can innovate your solution in the market. So you don't have to be like a business person to be in a startup. So I just want to make that really clear because every green chemistry startup needs a chief technical officer that understands the science and can drive the research forward.
I really wanna thank Matt for saying that because I've been in multiple events of green chemistry and people talking about green chemistry or courses where everybody's saying you can be an entrepreneur, do it, and then even sort of shaming people who would say I don't want to be an entrepreneur. And I think this is bullshit. And I can tell you that I at some point with the innovation that I presented on Monday, we started a startup, and then things fell apart immediately for all sorts of reasons. But it became I started to talk to people in the entrepreneurship space and so on and so forth, and I rapidly realized that one, I didn't have the time to do it, at a level that was even like proficient, just like enough to sort of stay above the waters. And also I hated the space. Like I didn't like the people there. I thought people were lying constantly. I mean, I didn't have the right mindset for it anyway. And then things started for us because we met another startup that were in the same business, and it was a perfect match. Like they're doing the startuping, we're doing the innovation, and we fundraise together. When we write grants, they write the part about business, we write the part about science. Of course, we have a lot of overlap and we talk a lot about how we do that, but the roles are clear and this is how we can move forward. And it doesn't mean that there are some great cases of people who are able to do both, but as you mentioned, it's actually quite rare. And I don't think we should throw out there to people that there must be these two very different things that really take a lot of time to do, both of them. If you want to do both well, I don't know when you sleep or when you have kids, I don't know. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing your story because again, you don't have to be the CEO, and like everyone wants to be the CEO because I don't know, that's like always how it is. But like CEOs don't do any science. They like literally just talk to investors all day and like deal with all the problems that come up with the lawyers. Like that's it. So, um, well, they might do this some of the strategy, but like you want to do science, that's okay, right? Like you can find a business partner and you can still get 20-30% of the company as a founding chief technical officer and let someone else do it. You'll still have to help and you'll come in there, right? And maybe work full time, but like you don't have to like abandon science for business. And like I hope one day that like I don't know, we fix all the world's problems and like I can just do science because it's awesome and cool. But like until then, like the pairing of like bringing together scientists, pairing them with business people. That's why I said early on, you need to bring in the business people. They like this stuff. They like balance sheets. They like doing the work. And if you can at least understand a few of the key words and a few of the key concepts, you can like build it together and you can do the stuff, right? The other thing is that there's a lot of early stage companies out there like Air Company and like some of these companies here that would hire you that you could work at. Like you don't have to go work at an oil company, right? A lot of these companies would love to have some green chemists doing work in their company now. And you'll have a lot more influence on the trajectory of a company if it's smaller. Okay. So, any questions or reflections on that? Because I don't want to deter people from going into business, but also to recognize that like we all have different skill sets and that's okay. Uh, any other comments or reflections? Okay. Oh, yes. Thank you.
I'm still a bit stuck on the thing that you say that if we have a kind of idea or innovation, we should be openly sharing it with like potential investor or something like that. But you know, it's not easy to find a match. It's not easy to find people that fit. Like Audrey said that she felt that people are just lying over there on the other side of the whole world. Okay, and but as an innovator or scientist, the idea is probably the only thing that we have. I mean, the only thing that we work hard for. How would you like balance it out between like, okay, I know that I can.
I get you. I get you. Okay. There's a spectrum here. Okay. Let if you have published your idea, it's not worth keeping it secret, right? Period. And it's not the idea that you have that is valuable. It's your understanding of the idea. Your understanding like it's not the secret that Dr. Moores is an expert in chitosan. Like she could like keep that secret, but what the value is her ability to understand how that fits into all of the other things, and when she gets a new problem she can understand how that could be applied, right? So your value in a business context is not necessarily the idea. Maybe if you discover a new molecule that can like, do some magic, happens occasionally, like polypropylene, right? You discover that. That's cool. Okay. But in general, your value would be like when the business person says, hey, there's three different markets here. Which one of these makes sense for us to go to first? And you're like, you look at each one of the market and you look at each one of their chemical processes. And then you say, oh my gosh, like there's the bigger delta H in this one. So let's go here because then that makes it for an easier sell. The business side could not do that, but it's your understanding of the idea in the context of a potential market and the existing processes that is the real value. So, of course, if you find that magic molecule, then keep it secret, but also you can't publish it. So, hard to say. Does that kind of maybe give some more context? Okay. Good, but good question though. Yeah. Um Other comments? Yeah. Yeah, nice. Please.
Hi, my name is Yudi. I just want to share something of my biggest failure in
Oh,
life.
yeah. Yeah, nice.
Okay. So I've got an investment of $1 million before startup. Okay. And it fails. One of the main reason is because my business partner is very afraid to share or to test the idea in the market. So the money just burns. And in the end, it's all gone. So, I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs really, I mean, they are so afraid to share what their ideas, usually like the first time entrepreneurs or probably because they are in a traditional background of the business. But in my case, it fails miserably, and it keeps haunting me. And well, I mean, I hope somebody can take this advice. I mean, like by heart, because it's very important. Don't be afraid. You just have to keep testing the ideas. But I know, I mean, like a lot of bad people over there. I mean, like, but you just have to keep believing, doing something, and pray sometimes because you never know. I believe that you can do whatever action you can, but sometimes depend on your luck. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Maybe I can share another so something just to give some context to what you say about it's okay to share and it's not really what's critical. So at some point we were in a discussion about our technology with some really a big the largest company that is transforming crustaceans in New Brunswick. It's a really big company. They have the largest plant in Canada for crustaceans, and they came to talk to us, and we showed the technology, and they were like, no, we're not interested. We don't want to sell that. And the whole argument is they wanted to sell a product that was more expensive than chitosan, and especially they wanted to sell nano chitosan, which was separate process that you also show, I also showed you on Monday. And we were like, we actually believe that with the volume and with everything, there was a better case to be made for Kaizen, but they disagreed with us. So it was very clear that so I think they wanted to pursue this. They said, okay, we're gonna pursue that, and you're gonna pursue this. So now we have another partner to really pursue that. But just the point of this discussion is that the problem here was not whether we shared information or not. The point here was that they disagreed with us on what was the good product to sell based on their understanding of the market. And in fact, in the end of the day, they never actually licensed the technology, and they never went that direction. And I think they just don't want to sell it. So they're just there. They just are not in this business opportunity anymore. But I think this is just to show you that, and it was really surprising to me because, again, I was more coming from the perspective of everything was about the process, but not at all. In this case, it was just a different vision of what the market will be and where you could make a profit based on your own circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, great points too. And part of it is like, look, you're not going to get 100% hit rate, right? Like, just because someone's a perfect customer doesn't mean that they have to buy your stuff. It's their choice. And like, you might have to have 9 misses before you have one sale of 10 perfect customers. And that's fine. Some people are more innovative. Some people buy the new iPhone the day it comes out and they wait in line for sleep in tents, for like 2 days to get the iPhone the day it comes out. Some people are like using an iPhone 5 or never get one, and one day they might, but who cares, right? So you can't force anyone to do anything, right? And I think it also is from the lens of like, were you really solving their problem, or were you trying to tell them that your solution is the one? It's also a different angle. So I guess I would say, um, commenting as well, from the gentleman in the back, you know, um, look, you can keep things secret, but at some point you have to sell something to someone. So like, are you waiting for one person to like put $100 million in before you tell anyone, right? Or like, what's the game it out? Like, what's the plan? So a lot of that is fit, but honestly, entrepreneurship is super scary, and it's really a lot of failures. A lot. It's hard. So like, you have to get used to failing like all the time, right? You might go through 3 businesses and burn $2 million before you even make it, right? You might have to change your business model 5 or 10 times, or different customers. Every time you have a new customer, it's a different set of marketing materials, or maybe you go from selling a product to selling a process. Like, you'll have to change a lot, but you have to do it. You have to do it over and over again. And do you well, I have to get started now because I'm getting the side eye. But like, there's a lot of swimming pools around. People go swimming. Yeah. Do they have like the high dive? You know what I'm talking about? Climb up the ladder. Has anyone done it? No one's gone on a hive dive? Okay, like a medium dive? A little diving board. Little diving board? Someone has. Okay. You get up on there, right? And you're like scared for a second, right? Like scary. You have to like jump in at some point. You know what I mean? And like, to get really good at something, you have to do it over and over again. And that feeling, like before you jump, does not go away ever. You just get more comfortable with it. Like, I'm still super nervous every time I walk on stage. You just get used to it, and that's fine. So, but you have to keep taking those risks all the time. So, all right. Business is calculated risk. People make different bets on the future. Some people win, some people lose. The car manufacturers won, the carriage manufacturers lost, right? But I bet if you were talking with them around a table in 1910, you would have had some people saying, I'm never going to start making cars. It's stupid. It's a fad, right? So, I mean, this stuff happens all the time as the world changes. Okay. Thank you for the engaging discussion. We're going to get started on the next unit. What's going to happen here? This morning, I talked about top down, all of the companies, their different strategies and trends, and kind of how they're starting to navigate and position. Then we talked from the bottom up, how you evaluate about taking an idea and trying to connect it to some of these things that are happening. And so we're going to run through 5 different case studies of companies of different sizes and scales. Okay. And I want you to really think about all the topics and and trends, macro trends, and all the different tools and value propositions, business model canvas, all that stuff. Critically evaluate these pitches, okay? And think a little less about the content. We can talk about the content, but think more about like the opportunities or the trends, how it relates to the trends, or what tactics or tools or information is missing that you really know. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to pretend like we're on an investment committee. Who knows what an investment committee is? Anyone? Yeah, sure. It's like Shark Tank. Okay. So be on Shark Tank. Okay. An investment committee in an investment fund, right? When people say, oh, we want to get investors, really what you want is you want to convince the investment committee to agree on investing in your company. The investment committee are the people who sit around in a circle and they look at your deck and they ask questions and then they vote on whether or not they invest in you. Okay. So, what type of information, opportunities, questions would you need to make that decision, and think less on process, more on market, business, operations, scaling like that? So, one last point: bigger companies, companies that are farther along, that are making more revenue, you make less money, but there's a slightly lower risk. Earlier companies, you're going to make a lot more money, but there's a lot higher risk you're going to lose it. Okay, so keep that in mind. Take your notes on the different companies. We'll have some discussions. And then at the very end, you'll vote on which one you're going to put your money in. Okay? Let's say 2 million US. All right? So big chunk of change. It's 20% of your fund. All right. So, first off, any questions before we get started? Great. Excellent. All right. I'm going to pretend to be the CEO of all these companies pitching you. All right. All right. So this is well, actually no, I'm going to take the perspective. I'm going to comment on it a little bit, narrate it for you. This is Sublime Systems. What they do is they make carbon negative cement. Okay. So their goal is to make low carbon cement. We can keep building. They're tapping into a $383 billion market. Big market. Nice. If I get that, that's a really profitable company. Extraordinary technology for a very ordinary product. Love this picture. I think it's so cool. Okay, so here's some of the competitors and the different processes they use. This is a competitor matrix, right? You have different types: carbon capture and sequestration, replacing concrete, feedstock replacement, and then feedstock and production replacement. They have various pros and cons. And of course, like a good entrepreneur, they've positioned themselves as the only winner here out of all their competitors. See how they have kind of some of the jobs to be done. Is it the same cost? What's the biggest impact? How much emissions would you reduce? So here's how the process works. Typically, you would use limestone, which is calcium carbonate. As that gets processed, it releases CO2. So instead, they have kind of some other non-carbonate materials, and then that just drops into existing facilities, and then they make concrete. So they don't have to change any of this stuff, which is great because this is super expensive. I don't want to build a new factory to make different types of concrete. I just want to change what's going in. Okay, so they sliced out a piece of the process and did one replacement. It's like the dream of climate technologies: drop-in replacements. Love it. Here's how it works. So this is the sciencey part of it. This is like the calcium carbonate coming in. You're replacing it with something else. You're using renewable energy. Okay, it kind of looks like they know what's going on here, but you can, ask your technical due diligence guys on if this makes sense. Maybe you have a scientist that you pay to check your science before you make investments, but you're basically So you're replacing the feedstock creation. I don't know. I don't know the answer. Sorry. Yeah, I don't. This is all the information I got here. But like, if you were an investor, if you were interested, they would basically you'd agree to a non-disclosure when you get to this point. Now we can keep things secret because if you want to see the actual data behind this, like now we get the point where we sign the papers. I'll show you, but you gotta right? You got to keep it secret or I'll sue you. But like this again, even this secret idea, like, I can't replicate this even with this level of information, right? So so you would then get access to their data room, and in their data room would have all sorts of technical specifications, all the testing, all the chemistry, all the backup information. You would get that if you then agreed to like move forward in the investment process. So then you could do that secondary level of due diligence. Typically, you see things once, you pitch the investment committee, they then decide if they want to do advanced due diligence on you, where you go into their data room and look at all their stuff and maybe hire experts to check some of their things. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so and it uses a number of green chemistry design principles. So that's cool. It's green chemistry. And here's their roadmap. It's linked. You have technology on one side and business on the other. Who's ever running that video is great. Actually, nice work. So from 2020 to 2024, they proved the functionality. They got a number of patents. They're at TRL 6. From a business scale, they've got about 140 million for construction. They've done field tests. Now they're trying to de-risk it a little bit by achieving cost parity, and they're basically they designed a 30,000 plant. They want to build it by the end of 2026. That's why they're raising money, and they want to sell successfully on the market large scale at TRL 7-8. And then after that, they'll probably raise some more money, be at TRL 9, which means it's like globally available in any supply. And they'll build a second plant, and then they'll basically outcompete the existing global suppliers. Nice use of proceeds here. It's kind of clear if I put my money in, like what they're going to do. It's well articulated. And we talked about risks. One of the questions was about risks, right, on the Zoom. So these are a number of risks, and investors might ask these questions. The industry is risk averse. How are you going to handle that, right? Or there's so much money, or projects take so long, right? How are you going to handle that? What's your strategy? So they've identified the risks, and then they've identified a number of mitigation activities to reduce those risks. We're going to build relationships. We're going to get certifications. We're going to lobby for policies. We're going to be advocates in industry groups, and we're going to design advanced purchase agreements with companies that want to reduce this. We're also going to do techno-economic modeling and cradle-to-cradle life cycle assessments to have that information ready to go. And then we're also going to talk to the players along the entire value chain so we can get all the information about regulatory changes, technological information. And then we're going to focus almost exclusively on cost parity. Here's the team, founding team. Leah Ellis. She's a postdoc at MIT. That's cool. She's probably pretty smart. And she worked with 3M and Tesla, so she has experience with early stage companies, hard tech companies. And then we have this professor here, professor of material sciences at MIT, pretty good to be the co-founder. Again, like businessy co-founder, innovator co-founder, right? Difference. He probably doesn't want to be the CEO, right? He just wants to do the science. This person's actually founded 5 companies, so that's cool. They're a repeat entrepreneur. They kind of know how this stuff goes, and they already have a number of big investors, including the U.S. government and Bloomberg and some of these other people. So other people believe in it, and that's the end for Sublime Systems. I think we'll have another one as that gets queued up. Any questions about Sublime Systems, maybe market trends they could interact with, or maybe things that you wanted to see, value propositions, business models, anything like this? Thinking back to the content from earlier. Okay, I'm going to do the thing where I randomly ask people again. I like that.
I think Budita has some
Oh, yeah?
insights.
Yeah? Yeah. Someone who hasn't spoken before. Let's try to get everyone to speak today by the end of the day, huh? Okay. You can answer in Indonesian if you want. No? Okay. All right. Who's gonna answer?
Oh, someone
Oh
willing.
yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just curious. Regarding the sublime systems, do they just affect the replacing limestone? How does it affect the true zero while they don't actually replacing? Because during the cement, during the mixing, it still needs a lot of heat. Usually, well, I know it's usually from coal, that thermal coal that needs the heat probably up until 1,000 degrees Celsius. So that's still producing carbon.
Sure. Again, I don't have all the full details of their
Okay.
process, but a lot of the CO2 is actually just made from the feedstock, from the calcium carbonate. So they're just
Okay.
replacing it with like a silicate, or that's brimstone. It's yeah, okay. So they're capturing the CO2 when they're separating out the calcium.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe just to simplify this, it's the only thing it does really is allowing you to collect the CO2 that otherwise would have been emitted by your piece of cement. So what this is a separation tool.
All right. Okay.
Separation and collection tool to capture the CO2. It's not solving in any way the fact that you have CO2 to deal with,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
CO2 is there, your emission is there. But when a lot of the problems with CO2 are linked to two things, you have the emission in and of itself that you have to deal with and do something with the CO2. That's the thing that everybody cares about and everybody has a lot of focus on. But there's another big problem which people often ignore and is costing a huge amount of energy, is often the reason why these things fail, is that the separation of the CO2 from the rest of the feed
Right. Okay.
is very costly.
Right. Okay.
So when you burn something, you produce CO2 and mix with nitrogen from the air. And the separation of CO2 from nitrogen is a huge nightmare for people.
Right. Okay.
So there are other mechanisms. This is one example of a mechanism. There are other mechanisms by which you can do that for combustion as well.
Okay.
This is the example specifically to cement.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So yeah, and that's a really good example. It's a super simple product, right? Like it's not a whole new process. It's like we're just taking one thing, we're taking this one thing out. It's easy to understand. It's one piece of the process. Simple. The simpler, the better. All right. I'm going to give the mic to one more random person who's been quiet. Would you like to make a comment? Okay. I'm not going to ask next time. All right. Then we'll go on for the sake of time. All right. Second company, Banofi Leather. Oh, shoot, I didn't bring the thing. Dang it. It's in the room. Can't believe I forgot. Okay, so this is Banofi Leather. And they have a nice slogan, which I like. Slogans are always good. Materials that make you go bananas. Pretty good. Kind of tells you what they do, but it's also kind of funny. I like it. Oh, you have to flip it. Oh, flip. Okay. All right. So Banofi Leather takes bananas waste and it turns it into a leather replacement, and it has similar strength, similar material properties as traditional leather, but it's different than fake leather, which is made out of petroleum-based weird plastics and stuff. Next, okay, so remember I started my presentation for the market. Notice how all these presentations are starting with the market, right? So here's the vegan leather market. Right now it's $61.5 million in 2022. It's projected to grow to 106 million by 2030 with a CAGR of 9.5%. Does anyone know what CAGR is? CAGR. That's an easy question. I won't pick on you if you answer. So maybe you want to. Compound annual growth rate. Nice. Year over year growth rate. We care about delta, right? Change. That's what we care about. Growing and always in business. It's like so cheesy. You start to look for this stuff, you'll always find it. There's always like an arrow going up. All right. So also you have some key players who are doing it. There's a lot of other competitors making leather out of cactus and cork and mushrooms, and fashion houses want this, and it's kind of cool. We don't want to hurt animals, so we're looking for replacements. Next. All right, here's your problem, your solution. Always good to start with the problem, then present your solution. Problem is most leather is tanned using toxic chemicals like chromium sulfate and formaldehyde, azolides. Thank you. Love audience participation. Thank you. There's a lot of banana waste too that just gets left there. And then there's also all sorts of problems in the banana industry about treating workers. And there's also a lot of like animal cruelty, right? Like some animals aren't treated very well to make our leather pants. And like, so instead, Banofi, they take these stems and they put some natural additives and they use some recycled materials, and it's 90% less CO2, it's 95% less water, and it's generating some additional income for banana farmers. It's cool. A lot of good benefits. All right, so here's a comparison of Banofi leather to traditional bovine leather and faux leather, which is a fancy French way of saying fake. Yeah, like fromage for vegan cheese, but also like sounds kind of expensive when you say French words. So bovine leather takes about 50 years to degrade. Theoretically, fake leather degrades in 1,000 years, kind of. But Banofi is mixed, so it's partially biodegradable. Um, Toxicity, we mentioned the chromium and the dyeing, and for faux leather, you have the whole petroleum supply chain, which has all sorts of problems from a toxic. Whereas Banofi gets rid of that toxic water from the life cycle of the product, so that's great. On renewability, this is a weird use of the word renewability, but it basically is how long it takes to make it. You can make it in 24 months from an animal. It's kind of weird. I never knew that before I looked at it. 2 years, new leather. Whereas a faux leather is it's not renewable, so it's being depleted. But banana stem fibers, you can do 15 to 18 months. So it's a little faster than traditional leather. And then they have some details on function, tensile strength, flexibility of different types of things. And this bothers me as a data guy. I don't know why they didn't use the same format and the same variables and compare them directly. But the general conclusion is that there's similar tensile strengths, aesthetics, and flexibility to animal leather, although it's slightly thinner. This is a very, very key point. Like if you want to sell to a big customer, it needs to perform exactly the same as the existing product. If it doesn't, they're not going to buy it. So you better have that information. So first they're going to say, is it the same? You say yes. Here's the data. Then they're going to say, how much does it cost? Oh, it's 4 times as expensive, but it's better for the earth. And it's green chemistry, so you should buy it. And then they're going to say no. But if you do say yes, and you're like, it costs the same, then they're going to say, okay, great. Can you get me 10,000 pounds a month every month on the first of the month for the next 5 years? And then you're going to be like, I can get you 10 kilograms. Do you want to buy that? And they'll say no. So if you think about those 3 things in order, then it will help you think about how to actually prioritize making sales to big customers. But that's kind of the arc. So that's why they have this information there. Okay, so here's our a roadmap, our timeline. Sometimes it is referred to as use of proceeds. So we have 40 employees. We're improving our business model and we're scaling. So we're trying to do some more research and development and market testing. So we want to replace the plastics and dyes that we use and the recycled materials to bio-based, so it's fully degradable. We want to get more data on making it stronger, and so it's perfectly same performance characteristics. Maybe do some new product lines, like maybe we'll do not just leather clothes, but maybe something in cars or something. And then we want to make a market proliferation through strategic partnerships. I bet this person worked at McKinsey. All right, so next. Okay. Okay, so now we have here opportunity and strategic objectives. Okay, so it's a B2B model. All right, quiz time. What's B2B? Okay, business to business. And so what that means is you're selling directly to a business, not to another customer. Again, as people, we always think about what we as people would do. Businesses respond differently. And in general, it's better to design a business model that's a B2B business model rather than a direct to consumer business model. It's easier for a number of reasons: less customers, higher value, better business. Okay. Hard to sell one bar of soap at a time and make $100 million in revenue. Easier to sell 100 million pounds of glycerol and lye to a different company once, right? All right, so, sorry. And so what we're really focused on is scalability right now. So we're gonna make a pilot facility in rural Calcutta, and right now we're priced at 32 to 40 dollars per 7.5 square feet. Not sure why they use those units, but it aligns with premium leather costs. So right now it's probably identical to premium leather. All right, next. Here is Janali Modi. She went to the Yale School of Environment and graduated in 2023. She's a former McKinsey consultant where she studied market proliferation. And there's two other Yale people. We're not quite sure what they do or if they have any experience, but it's good. And then the other members of the team is research and development. We have some business development. We're diverse. Diversity is good. Unclear what that means. And we're also, here's the local banana farming community, which is part of our team, and we engage with our business model to give them some more revenue. And then, so in sum, Banofi is this high quality leather that's comparable to traditional. We're building a larger pilot so we can see how much we can scale and grow our revenues. And we're in India, and we're focused on a skilled local team using regional bio-based materials. The hip phrase is what do they call it? Bioregional, local bioregional economies. There's some buzzwords like that. That's kind of how that's going. And so, but we align with that, and we help people in other countries with our business model. So that's great. Next. Okay, and that's it. All right. So that's Banofi leather. Maybe a little earlier stage than Sublime, but still interesting. And does some green chemistry stuff because it's valorizing waste and reducing toxicity. Questions, comments about Banofi leather? From someone we haven't heard from. Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
Has there been any approach to the local farmers to ensure the sustainability of uh, the sources?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but I do know that they're like working with them, like they pay them directly. So I imagine it's a consideration, but it's not one that was expressed here, which is a good concern. You know, as businesses get bigger, right? Um, the people that Banofi's working with right now might be doing good farming practices. But if it actually succeeds and it has to purchase like 50 million kilograms of banana waste, some of those farmers might not be as good. And so as you scale, you need to think about the potential impacts of your supply chain and whether you're inputs can actually scale in the way you want to without inadvertently creating some of the same problems that exist in the current systems? Good question. All right. I'm going to pick on someone else. Someone back there was going to talk. Someone we hadn't heard from. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, silakan.
Yeah. Nice. Hello.
How do they analyze the market for this vegan leather?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. I think vegan leather is primarily like it's a pretty big so it's like you have consumer goods, and then you have like textiles, and then you have like leather, and then you have like vegan leather. So I don't know if they did this market research themselves. It seems like kind of a small market
Yeah,
to
like
me
what
personally.
makes people want to buy vegan leather? Right.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that's an interesting question. Slightly different, but I think a lot of consumers really care. Like, there's a lot of vegans out there in the world. From my time in Indonesia, I don't think there are many vegans here, but there are a lot in the world, and they do buy clothes, and some of them like rock and roll and want to wear leather jackets, but also some brands, some fashion brands, like publicly say, we don't want any animal cruelty. And so they just say, instead of using normal leather, we'll use vegan leather. Uh, Also, it's greener. So yeah, I mean, also some companies on a higher level too, they need to reduce CO2. They need to reduce the toxic impacts on their supply chain, just like with carpets, right? They're saying, well, this is something I could replace that would have a big impact.
There was a whole analysis by the New York Times about the impact of the leather industry in the United States for SUVs and how it translated into the burning of the Amazon and how many acres of the Amazon had been torn down just to grow cows to put leather cushions inside the cars of American SUVs. So there are lots of implications of the leather industry.
Yeah. So stuff like that makes it really hard. That's really like demotivating and really frustrating that that's the reality we live in. But let's design some better stuff. So their market might be small because they've identified their first customer as textiles. Okay. But maybe cars are another big market, and they might actually be better suited to replace car leather. So again, that's a choice at a startup. And as an investor, if you make the investment, you would get a board seat, and then you could help influence how the company would, maybe you could influence their strategy with your leverage as a major equity shareholder. Yeah. Thank you for the question. All right. Oh, there's some people talking over here. That means you have a comment on Banofi leather. Yeah. Go. Go. Okay, one more and then we can go on. So stop making me be awkward and like run around. This table talked. Did someone over here talk? How about someone over here? No? Okay. All right. Okay. It's fun. It's a safe space. No one's going to make fun of you. I promise. Okay. Next team. Okay. This is called Air Company. Air Company. Next slide. Oh, actually, maybe I can. Okay. It's hard being an investor, isn't it? They have to look at literally hundreds of these slide decks a week. All right. So like, just keep that in mind. Not there's do you say the grass is always greener in yeah? All right. So Air Company, they capture CO2 from emissions and they create alcohols. They have multiple products, including carbon neutral vodka, fragrances, and carbon neutral jet fuels, or what's known as sustainable aviation fuel, which is a really hot topic because no one wants to stop flying. But aviation, I think, is around like 8% of global CO2 emissions, something like this. Okay, so it's a big chunk. So in 2019, they released their first product, which was turning CO2 into vodka. They 22-23, they contracted for sales of 1 billion gallons of fuel from Virgin Atlantic and JetBlue. And 2024, they're building new production facilities. So look at this. A value proposition. That's great. Nice. Thank you. Carbon neutral fuels produced by captured CO2 is the highest potential for reducing greenhouse gas and approaches the aviation's unmet need to reduce CO2 under regulatory requirements. Here's some of the products. But something also to note is I love this picture, and I'm so glad they put this in here. This guy's the CEO, and this guy's the CTO, right? Nice photo. This isn't random. This is their marketing headshot release. Okay. What does it tell you? What do you take from this? Someone? This is an easy question. Okay. Well, anyway, this guy's cool, right? He's the cool business guy, right? You want to do business with this guy? This guy's the dorky scientist, and you can trust him because he's wearing a lab coat and has glasses. Entrepreneur, operator, innovator, the team, right? This guy's not going to be like, doing the balance sheet, right? He's going to be doing the optimizing. Oh, this should be 4.8 degrees Celsius instead of 4.6 degrees Celsius. And let me check the mass spec results. But again, there's jobs for both of these people at this company, right? And again, this is deliberate. They want investors and the public to know that they've separated out their science from their business, right? Okay. And he likes the Yankees. We don't like the Yankees. We like the Red Sox, right? All right. So here's the market. Small but growing fast. The government has a 12% penetration rate of SAFs by 2030. So regulatory driver, that's a dependable market growth, right? You're not projecting it. Market's growing because they have to. The challenge is that right now, sustainable aviation fuel is about twice as expensive. And to build large scale production, you have to build these giant factories that are really expensive. Here's the plot on the market, sustainable aviation fuel market. 2023, quite small. 2027, 2032. Wow, that's big, huh? CAGR. Look at that CAGR. 42%. It's a fast growing market. There's good money potential in there. There's gold in them there hills. Okay. So here is the 5 forces analysis. Okay. You want to be a fake business person. You just do a 5 forces analysis. Okay. This is an old school Harvard thing. This guy, Michael Porter, was a business professor. And if you're at least aware of this, or you can bring it up in conversation, people will think you know a lot about business, and you'll probably know a lot more than most people. It's relatively simple. Okay, so I'll run through it. There's competitive rivalry. There's threat of new entry. There's threat of substitution. There's the buyer power and the supplier power. And those are the 5 forces in the market that determines whether a company will live or die, according to Michael Porter. But Porter's 5 forces, really great tool. If you're ever writing a report, you have to do anything on business, throw that in there. The professor will give you high marks. Okay? Not too hard either. So competitive rivalry, super hard because there's a lot of people making jet fuel, high competitive rivalry. The threat of new entry is medium, I would say small, but in general, it's right now it's a small market and it's really expensive to become a producer of SAF. So probably not going to have very many new competitors emerge. The threat of substitution is super high. There's not a uniqueness about air companies' sustainable aviation fuel. It is, according to a specification, all sustainable aviation fuel is the same. So it's highly substitutable. So you have no advantage from your product versus your competitor. The threat of substitution is pretty high because it might actually change. The other thing is that you might have substitutable products that are you might have totally something different come about, like biofuels, right? Buyer power is relatively low because a lot of people want this, but there's not really enough. And the supplier power is also low because the source of your feedstock comes from CO2. Like there's a lot of other things it could do besides turn into um, uh, ethanol, ethanol. Okay, so here are the financials. All right, we're gonna run through these. We know financials now, right? This doesn't scare us too much. We look at it and just look at it. It's not scary. Okay, here are the multiples. So these are a few of the competitors. Here's the revenue they made. Here was the valuation they received as a company. Your multiple or your EBITDA multiple is basically your revenue or your valuation divided by your revenue. So this company got 5.9. This was 1.1, 10.1. The average is about 6. Air Company had 39 million in revenue, $180 million valuation. It has a 4.7 multiple. It's a little lower than the average, which means that it's underpriced. It's underpriced. It might be a good opportunity for an investment, right? So on the right here, we have some economic projections. Notice how they've simplified them, right? Just to present some key information for analysis. The price per gallon, 2027, $7, 2032. You got your production, it's going up 4x. Your revenues growing up about 4x. Your EBITDA about the same. And you're assuming no change in operating margin. So it's an assumption. Important to note. A few kind of points is that, let's see here. I'll mention this. There's an opportunity here, which is tax credits. So the US government is offering tax credits 1.25 or $1.25 to $1.75 per gallon, up to 3 billion gallons per year of sustainable aviation fuel. But so if you do that math, let's just say it's one, this would be like another 350 or 500 million dollars, right? Right? But because EBITDA, right? Yeah, before taxes. Okay. So they didn't put in that bonus there into these numbers. The reason they didn't do that is because an investor wants to know, independent of all the regulations, independent of all the policies, how does it stack up, right? You can always have upside policies, right? But I want to see it as plain as possible. But it's also a big opportunity because, again, that's another $500 million, right? That's not factored in there. So important to note, not the same as net income. So besides just sustainable aviation fuel, Air Company is much more. They can produce ethanol, which can be used in a variety of sources, as well as methanol. But as we were discussing earlier, high volume commodities that are super simple, like ethanol and methanol, people aren't really willing to pay twice the price generally. So we got to do value added product with regulatory support until we can scale our technology enough so that then we can achieve cost parity in other areas. Here's how it works. CO2 capture, electrolysis, there's a conversion tank and some distillation to make the alcohols. Here are some of the products. Nice branding. Kind of labby, right? Feels sciencey. Intentional choices, right? You want people to know that this is like actual science. And again, here's all the technical information for the people that want to look at it. And I like it. It's very small here, but basically, this is the current process to make alcohols. You have an electrolyzer, a reverse water gas separator, and like a Fischer-Tropsch thing. But with Air Company, you can basically just do the electrolyzer and this hydrogenator, and then you can make the fuel. So you're basically, for the dumb non-chemists in the room, okay? 3 square more expensive, 2 square less expensive. That's all people really need to know sometimes. Okay. So don't overdo it. But we could talk about only straight chain paraffins were observed under operating conditions. But again, that's just going to kind of scare an investor because, like, if they think you're using fancy words to try to fool them into giving you money, they're going to be less likely, even though we think we need to use those fancy words to be credible. Because in our experience as scientists, we have to use the fancy words when we talk to other scientists. Otherwise, they think we're dum-dums, right? But if you fancy words with the investors, then they think you're trying to maybe uh, fleece them, as we would say. All right. It also had the secondary hydrogenation has much faster kinetics than the olefin isomerization, which I think is good. Sure. I guess, yeah, faster kinetics is good. All right. So here are customers. Again, this is really important because this was like a huge deal. Okay. They got what is called an advance purchase commitment from Virgin Atlantic. They're a big airline. They're going to purchase 100 million gallons from them over the next 10 years. And JetBlue, again, a big airline, um, purchase. They're going to purchase 25 million over the 5 years. So why would these companies buy this stuff that's twice as expensive?
Pay a lot for carbon tax.
Yeah, okay. They could pay a lot for carbon tax in areas where there is a carbon tax. Also, they have to be net zero, right?
In the future. Yeah.
Yeah, so they need to start doing this. And, maybe they're also betting that companies that have less CO2 airlines will sell more tickets than companies that don't, right? So they have to do some of this stuff anyway. But what's important is they air companies successfully with a major corporate that was much more powerful than them said, we're going to sell you this. You have to buy it for the next 10 years at this price, right? That's like the number of meetings and the number of pages of legal contracts that went back and forth and emails to make that happen is incredible. Okay. And it speaks a lot to their company. But it also, the reason it's so valuable is because in their financial projections, now they have a lot more certainty on how much revenue they're going to make. So the commitment for these companies to purchase basically guarantees revenue for them over the next 10 years. That's a big achievement. They won the Green Chemistry Award because they're net negative. 1.5 kilograms of CO2 per kilogram of ethanol produced, uses less water. And although it's not carbon negative for jet fuel because you burn it, right? It's 90% less than traditional jet fuel. So not going to be net zero for the airlines, but 90% less is at least a good start in the short term. We got to do everything we can everywhere. So in summary, they've signed long-term contracts. They capture CO2 to produce alcohols, serving the sustainable aviation fuel. And they also, have the potential in the future to become like a major chemical company and produce things like ethanol and methanol, which I believe are called platform chemicals. Is that the right phrase? They're platform chemicals because they have a lot of dependencies in the global supply chain for a number of other things. So that's Air Company. Pretty cool. That was company number 3. I think should we do some questions and take a break, or where are we at in time? I didn't look.
I think we can do some questions.
Let's do some questions. Okay.
So-
I'm gonna. Oh, yeah. You want one? No. Okay. All right. Yeah. Go bravely shove it in someone else's face. That was good. Try a new table. Yeah. Someone that hasn't spoken yet.
Maybe
Oh, yo,
someone.
great. Yes. Thank you. You're so brave. Take the risk. Jump off the diving board.
I want to ask you, if you are an investor, what kind of business that you want to join? First, air company, second, sublime system, or three, benefilator. What is and why the reason?
Oh, would I invest in? Well, don't you want to see them all before I tell you? I mean, it's different. Like what I would say is this, right? Like we think of the word investors like it's one thing. There are thousands of different types of investors. Some investors are small, they write $50,000 checks, $50,000 checks. That's their fund. Some of them are big and they write $10, $50 million checks. each of these companies are going to have different preferences on what they want companies to have, right? Some might say, look, until you make 25 million a year in revenue, I don't want to invest in you, no matter how cool you are. Or no, some investors say we don't invest in sustainable aviation fuel. We only invest in I don't know, software companies, right? So really, as an investor, like there's a different thesis, right? You can think of investors as their own little kind of scientists. They all have their own hypotheses. Okay, they call them theses in the investment world. So every investor will, every fund will have a thesis, right? So when you're pitching as an because investors have to pitch too. I don't know if you know that, right? But what we consider investors, again, are really what are known in the financial world as fund managers. Fund managers have to pitch people with money to give them money so that they can then invest in startups. So they get up there like I'm doing now, or like what startups do, and they present their thesis to people who want money invested. Okay. So again, what the answer to your question depends on the thesis of my fund. Yeah. Which I'll tell you at the end after the other two. Thank you for your question. One more? Oh, yeah. Oh, great. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So the target market for this company is, I guess, in my opinion, is very different. The alcohol beverages, and also alcohol beverages, and also for the aviation, to use in aviation fuel. So why you have very different target market? I mean, why not have like a similar target market, for example, as a aviation fuel, and also probably as a to petrochemical company, maybe chemical industry.
Yeah. So you must be a business student. No? What do you study? Okay. That was a really good business question, by the way, right? So again, I just point that out because we haven't really learned that much about business stuff. Y'all can think about this pretty well. So like again, don't let the business people take control of society here. Okay? We're the experts on what type of processes should be done. So thank you for your question. So what you're saying is that you're fearful that because I have multiple types of customers, it is an operational risk for the company, and instead I should focus on one segment and one product. Yeah. So with alcohols, so the truth is, like when we first started, I couldn't make jet fuel. I could make jet fuel, but I couldn't sell it to anyone, right? So as a business, I need to sell things to people. I can get grants for a while, like the first year or two. I don't really have to sell anything. I can get grants as my revenue. But like at some point, I have to sell something to somebody so that people believe that there is value in the market. Again, the hair on fire problem, right? Or the unmet need. Turns out that the unmet need of celebrities in New York City is to drink carbon negative vodka, and people will buy this, right? And then people talk about it. But again, that was never my goal, right? That was never Air Company's goal. Their goal was to demonstrate that you could make products that you could sell out of captured CO2, which they proved. They got revenue. They did a few different products to try to show the variety. That allowed them, when they hit a certain amount of revenue, to then and to de-risk, to demonstrate their projects or their products. Really, their technology is their product, right? But the products they sell, then investors say, okay, this is real, right? You proved it. You made a few different things, and you did it on time, on schedule. You scaled it up. Now we'll give you money. It's de-risked, and now you can go after this market. So they kind of think they sell this stuff, but they really don't really sell the vodka and the perfume anymore, or the hand sanitizer. They have some, and they kind of give it away as promos because it's good to like I have some of the perfume. I'll bring it after the break, but it's like good to show that it's real, and it's like very valuable. Again, the Steve Jobs thing with like the iPhone, right? To have the iPhone, it like feels really real and you can pass these things around. CO2 is like a very vaporous concept. So to say this bottle, this liquid came from the air is like a very good thing in investor meetings that can help you close the deal. So it would, yeah, we only sell one product basically. The other stuff is for promotion. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your question. That was great. One more and then a break. Okay.
There's something in my mind actually when seeing this presentation. Uh, Using carbon dioxide as the source for generating alcohol is actually interesting. But somehow, when I see this presentation, converting carbon dioxide to alcohol somehow needs a lot amounts of hydrogen, and we need hydrogen for clean as a clean fuel. Why don't we use the hydrogen for directly as a fuel? That is the first thing. The second thing is there's much more cheaper technology to capture to take advantage from carbon dioxide rather than using this technology actually. And there is also a lot of much cheaper sources for generating alcohol also. So why we need to choose this? That is in my mind actually. Not a question, just a comment. Thank you,
Yeah,
Matt.
no, it is a comment, and it's the comment of a great investor, right? Skeptical, just like a great scientist, right? Skepticism is the core activity. Um, I'm just the CEO, so I'm going to defer to my chief technical officer to answer that question.
Okay. So the problem with aviation fuel and the problem with hydrogen in aviation is that you don't want to put hydrogen in an airplane because it's so flammable and so explosive. And the aviation industry is the highest regulated sort of traffic market worldwide, and you want to make sure that you run it safe. That's why the company is focusing on aviation fuel and not on diesel or any other stuff, right? And for your second question, so the focus was never ethanol. When we actually did the first experiments in the lab, we found out that we can make a big mixture of different things, ethanol, but also hydrocarbons, hexane, longer, even benzene and things like that. But to get some traction and some attraction from investors, we decided to do ethanol first because in our raw product we identified a big fraction of ethanol. We thought, okay, that's a cool thing to lift off, and then we go back and optimize the system for fuel molecules, for longer hydrocarbons, for benzene and things like that. Because actually in aviation fuel you need aromatic compounds too, very low percentage, but you need them to keep the engines running. But we started with ethanol just to get traction, and then we really turned the attention back to the fuel molecules. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Second question. H2. No, I'm not the. No, I'm not the CSO. I'm not investing in
No,
this.
no, you're the
The-
technical advisor to the investor.
Yeah, exactly. So my problem with this is that your H2, it's coming from, where is it coming from? From steam forming? Well,
You need energy for
yeah, you need energy for electrolysis.
Renewable energy.
Right now, 90% of the hydrogen is coming from steam reforming, which is emitting more CO2 than the traditional fossil-based fuel.
So you're wait, okay. Oh, this is good. This is good. I like this. Okay, so so let's zoom out. So this fund is very concerned. They're an impact fund.
Yes.
They're an impact fund. So their investors put a lot of money in to reduce carbon dioxide. So if they make an investment that inadvertently creates more carbon dioxide, they're going to lose their investors and they might get sued. So again, there's market forces at play here that are all beyond everyone's control. So Lars, close the deal. We need this investment to keep going, man.
I hope there's another investor group here. I believe that we are all working under the assumption that I think we're going to lose this.
And that oh,
I mean, the big assumption is, of course, that renewable energy will take over, right? And most of these technologies, especially air company, it's a business that is 100% based on the idea that renewable energy will take over and that we are not burning fossil fuels to generate energy, right? Now, I'm not the CTO anymore. I'm just saying this as non-CTO. I think we lost them already.
that's okay. They're just a greenwashing fund anyway. We want the
Yeah.
real
I
impact.
saw some of their other investments.
I heard Exxon
Yeah.
invested in their fund.
Yeah. So that's why the energy transition and developing of new energy sources is so important to make those things actually impactful, because otherwise you will never reach carbon neutrality for aviation fuel or carbon negativity for hard materials or something like that, right? So the energy is really, really very crucial.
Yeah, so that's our bet. We hope you come along with us, but we understand, we're all making different bets in this.
Am I fired?
No, you're still good. I can't fire you anyway because you have a ton of equity. All right, so we're going to take a break now. We're going to start again at
3:30.
at 3:30. Does that enough time? What time is it now? Yeah. Oh, okay, great. Oh, perfect. 3:30. 3:30. Okay. So thank you all for your good questions, and get ready for the people who didn't ask questions because I've been looking at you. I know who you are. So think about a question during the break when I call on you next time. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sir Matt.